We had Irma go through and it was just a joke almost compared to this.
The home is destroyed. It's the second time it happened.
Everything just broke. I had 4 feet of water up to my hips.
We've been lucky the last, 5, 6 years, so, and this time, nope, it caught us.
Duck for cover inside of the closet.
It's overwhelming, it's devastating. All of these beautiful scenic places that I've been to, they're gone.
Hurricane Ian rolled across Florida's southwestern coast on Wednesday, September 28th. The storm's eye came on shore near Cayo Costa Island. The 155-mile-per-hour winds and record-setting storm surge forever changed many communities in this region. WUFT reporters were dispatched across the disaster zone in the hours after the storm. And during the next 30 minutes, we will share stories of damage, destruction, resilience, and hope. Communities in Southwest Florida were devastated, from Naples to Venice and Bonita Springs to Port Charlotte. Barrier Islands were hit especially hard. WUFT's Chris Will introduces you to Good Samaritans, helping those stranded on Pine Island.
Chris Murphy lives for the water. The Gainesville native unloads his boat, starts the engine, and heads out for the day.
We're getting ready to go on the lake and do some wake surfing. That's what we pretty much do non-stop.
But this isn't one of those typical days.
We can take one more if somebody wants to go.
On this day, he's going out for something else. Unfamiliar scenery, hundreds of miles from home. He's helping Hurricane Ian survivors.
Everything's pretty much decimated from what we understand, and so we're going to hope to go out there and pick some people up and bring them back and help them get back to food, shelter.
Murphy, along with his daughter and her husband, made the trip from north central Florida to help those impacted by the storm.
Caught an hour or two of sleep in the Publix parking lot, and now we're at it.
The destination is Pine Island. Residents of the small farming island have been without power and water since the start of the storm.
I don't know what's going on. I'm sitting here in the dark for 2 days.
Dinger is one of thousands. All the residents on the island have been cut off from the mainland after the roads and bridges were washed out by the storm surge.
Here at the Yucatan Waterfront Restaurant, a place meant for food and fun is now focused on the evacuation.
As many residents try to leave the island, the U.S. Coast Guard and other first responders from across the state have turned their resources to the region to help any way they can.
The community comes together in every natural disaster we have. We have the strongest knit community around anywhere. When Katrina happened over there in New Orleans, we sent 50 crews, trucks, boats over there to help them. And they're paying us back the same way. I've seen people from Mississippi, Louisiana.
Even Dinger, who's been impacted by the storm, has taken to the roads to make them safe for travel. Despite that, he still feels lost.
You know, I just don't know what to do. I'm willing to lend a hand if I knew who to lend it to.
Joining the many hands, mobilizing to help those impacted by the storm, including Murphy.
Knowing that we had the resources to do something, we just decided to come down and work the weekend to help some people out.
And as his boat cuts through the water, Murphy and his family are helping the people of Southwest Florida one ride at a time. On Pine Island, Chris Will, WUFT News.
As first responders and volunteers are rallying to help, Pine Island residents are slowly returning. WUFT reporter Amy Gallo was with one family who surveyed the destruction in their neighborhood for the very first time.
It's a long and bumpy ride. Dodging tipped power lines and fallen trees, Laylee Ramos' husband's trailer bed serves as a makeshift bus.
Hold on, baby girl.
shuttling family, friends, strangers, and even dogs to their homes and workplaces. It's their first time back on Pine Island since Hurricane Ian rolled through.
Nosotros nos fuimos como el martes en la tarde. Ya estaba lloviznando y poco aire.
Tearing apart homes, wiping out restaurants, and knocking over power lines.
No estuvimos en lo más fuerte.
Leaving this agricultural island community off the coast of Cape Coral unrecognizable.
Pues está triste sí, porque, bueno, de los 17 años que yo he venido, aquí tuve mis 3 hijos, bueno, de aquí no me he movido y no lo había visto de esta manera.
Ramos and her husband made the palms at Pine Island their home when they moved from Mexico nearly 2 decades ago. It's a tight-knit community.
Sí, es pura gente hispana, sí, nos conocemos todos.
And as she walks through her home for the first time, Ramos realizes how lucky she is. Minimal damage. There's a broken door and some debris. No drinking water or power.
No tenemos. Mis 3 hijos, mi esposo, mi hermana y su esposo son los que vivimos en la casa.
She's grateful. They're still able to call it home. But many of her neighbors face a different fate. A few mobile homes were flooded. Others hardly resemble the houses left behind.
Se ve como empezar de nuevo. Sí, empezar y pues a ver de donde se pueda ayudar, trabajar. Esto sí va a llevar rato volver a como estaba.
There's sadness, picking up the remnants of what used to be, but there's also a glimmer of hope as they prepare for what's to come. On Pine Island, Amy Gallo, WUFT News.
Back on the mainland, families are also sifting through the destruction Hurricane Ian left behind. WUFT reporter Alexis Clevenger met one tearful Fort Myers woman who had just reunited with her husband.
Cutting the soaked carpets, scrubbing the mud-filled floors, and trashing the family's antiques. This is what 4 feet of floodwater left behind in 74-year-old Elaine Livingston's home looks like.
It's like we got bombed.
But as she says tangible items can be replaced, a person cannot.
I'm happy it's a mess, but that can be replaced. Can't replace it. My husband's still alive.
Elaine says she chose to evacuate hours before Ian made landfall in southwest Florida, while her other half decided to stay. She recalls the conversation.
He said, I'm not leaving, I'm staying. I said, well, I'm leaving. And that's where I left to my son who lives on the West Coast.
A goodbye that Elaine feared could have been forever. She returned home for the first time on Saturday. So much unknown, no communication, a fear her husband might be dead.
I've been crying. I've been breaking down probably every hour of the hour. This is one hell. This is not a hurricane.
And she's right. It's more than a hurricane. It's her life. And she'll continue to live it with her husband.
I was afraid we would have to replace him.
And together,
look at you! Beautiful!
Alongside her husband and sons, Brandon and Timothy, the process begins. That painful process of salvaging mementos and family heirlooms.
It's been every possible emotion you can imagine. Frustrating, sad. We've made jokes, we've laughed, you know. It's really starting to set in. You see the pile of stuff that, you know, has been here for 20 years.
Sorting, sobbing, savoring time together.
Taking time to pause and reflect and to make sure they understand how lucky they are to be alive, really. At the end of it, there's probably a lot of people who didn't survive this or are going to be a lot worse off than this.
Elaine says she's grateful for family.
Excellent. That gets an A triple plus. They've done everything right.
And surrounded by family, it's the everlasting love that keeps her going. In Fort Myers, Alexis Clevenger, WUFT News.
Just up the coast, another story about starting over. I visited the Windmill Village mobile home community in North Fort Myers. Here, I met Mirela Jimenez, who must now rebuild her life once again. No roof.
Mira, todo eso también le llevó.
No walls, shattered windows.
Ya esto no sirve.
Mirela Jimenez's bedroom.
Es que en esta locura.
A small reflection of Hurricane Ian's aftermath.
Imagínate, tengo casi 70 años. ¿Y para qué voy a hablar de eso? Es bien triste porque y aparte yo estoy enferma. Ahora volver no es fácil.
These are the tears of a woman who has lost everything, not once, but twice in her life. Hurricane Irma destroyed Mirela's Miami home in 2017. She moved to North Fort Myers to start over.
No pensaba que me iba a pasar otra vez.
But Hurricane Ian struck her home in Windmill Village, tearing her life apart once again.
This is the second time, and they had a lot of trauma going through that, and they really feel it.
Mirela has nowhere to go but forward, each morning waking up
A volver a levantarse, ¿verdad?
and cleaning up what's left behind with the help of family and neighbors.
Now it's just really a race against time to gather as many things as possible and get them to some place where the rain's not going to damage it, because it's going to start South Florida. It's going to start raining again,
Drops will fall from the sky just as tears will flow down her cheek. Grief momentarily gives way to gratefulness.
Estamos vivos.
But her life ahead will come with challenges. Being low income and living in today's economy makes her nervous about how she will rebuild what was lost.
Todas las personas dicen, pero todo lo material se recupera, pero lo material no cae del cielo. Si no tienes el dinero no lo puedes recuperar, ¿entiendes? Por lo tanto, estamos en un momento que todo el mundo sabe que la economía está mala.
She'll need the government to step in.
She needs that money to help her rebuild and salvage what she can and start over.
Starting over, something the Cuban immigrant has grown accustomed to in her lifetime. But in the midst of damage, destruction, and déjà vu, one thing has remained constant for Mirela: her faith.
Yo digo que, bueno, pues son pruebas que uno tiene que pasar en la vida. Yo tengo mucha fe y que Dios me va a volver a ayudar.
Mirela will put her life back together.
I mean, there's no easy way through it. You just gotta, piece by piece, that's all.
Piece by piece, one day at a time. In North Fort Myers, Ophelia Jacobson, WUFT News. Many families are hurting along Florida's Gulf Coast. Homes are destroyed, but many businesses were also washed away. WUFT reporter Macy Goldfarb met one Fort Myers man who lost his entire livelihood.
Produce. It's John Turlup's livelihood. So much so, he made the last owner of Paradise Produce promise the business to him once he retired. And for the last 8 years, it's been all his.
This is all I know what to do. I mean, this is how we make our living. This is how I employ 10 employees. This is how we employ, 10 families.
In the hours that Hurricane Ian hung over Fort Myers, Turlup thought of his produce stand, the business he'd been so fond of even before calling it his own. He feared the worst.
They were up to chest high.
When Hurricane Ian hit Fort Myers, it left Turlup's vehicles halfway underwater. In the aftermath of the storm, he had no way to check on his stand. His manager was the first to make it there.
He called me and he was crying and he's just devastated. John, it's gone. Everything's gone.
That manager was eventually able to get Turlup from his home to the produce stand. What he arrived to was a shell of his business. Nearly all his produce washed away.
There's everything from A to Z here. I mean, we have 4 coolers here loaded with avocados and peppers and tomatoes and you name it, we had it.
2 of the business's 4 delivery trucks, all left in front of the stand to block wind, floated off in floodwaters. All 4 completely totaled. The only option?
Start from new and buy new trucks.
Shelves, tables, supplies, now just debris Turlup and his employees will need to clean up. One employee, Craig Makala, says he hadn't expected things to be so bad, just hoped to still have a job to return to.
Expect to come back, do some cleanup, hopefully have some work.
So cleanup is work now.
Makala has worked at Paradise for 6 years and has lived in Florida for 10. He says he's never witnessed a hurricane this bad. Still, he's trying to stay optimistic.
You know, it'll all come together. You know, it always does. It's just going to take a long time.
Most of what's left of Paradise produce is unsalvageable. But the building itself, the same one that's housed the business for over 50 years, still stands.
I know I can do it again. We can do it. You know, if the shell is here, we can do it.
Paradise is already getting visits from regulars hoping to help out by buying produce, but they're not back in business just yet. That will come when the stand is cleaned up and has power.
As long as people are healthy, we can rebuild. You know, that's the main key. And we will. We're strong Floridians. We will.
A new beginning for a Fort Myers staple, Turlip hopes to start the stand's new chapter by the end of the month. In Iona, Macy Goldfarb, WUFT News.
The water is a big reason why so many people love to live and vacation along this coast. Boating is a way of life in these coastal communities. WUFT reporter Kendall Brandt explains how the storm surge and high winds wrecked this boater's paradise.
Water, splashing, flags and sails, waving in the wind. But not the same as they used to when Charles Soroski would take his boat out to sea. Soroski took a 4-hour drive during Hurricane Ian, the goal to make it back to his hometown and workplace.
I actually drove through the tropical storm part of it and got down here as fast as I could.
His first reaction, utter shock.
Some people say 1,000 words can explain it. Some people say no words can explain it.
Soroski says he has never seen anything like this in his 19 years of living in Fort Myers. Now, all he has to clean up, a decade of memories.
I did powerboating, sailing. I was a sailing coach here. This right here, this entire area was my whole life.
And his life is now changed. Changed just like everyone impacted by the storm.
Our whole lives out on Sanibel and Fort Myers Beach and even downtown, like a lot of these businesses are going to be going out of business and a lot of these people they've lost their homes.
Homes that were located on the harbor.
A lot of these people live on the boats in Legacy Harbor here and they've lost everything.
Soroski says about half of the boats in Legacy Harbor Marina were homes for boaters. Lee County did not have a mandatory evacuation. Some boaters rode out the hurricane on the water.
People stayed on their boats at the yacht basin, and I know a lot of them are okay. And a lot of people stayed on the shrimp boats on Fort Myers Beach, and they're all okay too, which is miraculous.
Just down the street, Fort Myers Yacht Basin fared better than its neighbor. However, at least 5 boats are underwater. Community members felt so devastated as they walked around to see a place they admire so much torn to pieces. Boat owner Bob McEwen was concerned about the conditions of the river.
The first thing that I noticed is a massive amount of diesel fuel laying on top of the water.
Gas that McEwen says could make the situation go up in flames.
If somebody should throw a match in there, I mean, we've all seen the movies with gasoline on the water and somebody throws a match, what happens? Bad things happen. All of these boats could catch on fire.
Back at Legacy Harbor Marina, there were tears and devastation. Tears coming from the eyes of passerby Roxana Montilva.
It's truly sad to see a town that I love so much just into pieces. Sorry, I can't even. This is just so emotional.
But for Soroski, emotional is an understatement. It's personal.
I've driven all these boats. I learned how to drive a boat and got my boater's license on one of the boats that's around here, and it's super sad to see.
He lost what was once his whole life, but Soroski is glad to see no one hurt or killed at the marina.
I was hoping that when I got out here it wasn't going to be blocked off crime scene. I was praying, so it's really, really good to see that nobody's hurt.
Soroski is still treading water, but will soon be on solid land once again. In downtown Fort Myers, Kendall Brandt, WUFT News.
Hurricane Ian has left billions of dollars in damage across the Florida peninsula. Many families lost everything. WUFT reporter Emily Palazzotto highlights volunteers who rushed to Southwest Florida, helping those individuals who need it the most.
It was real bad.
The day Hurricane Ian arrived,
It was times that where, like, I was praying.
Is the day 40-year-old Tamara Cersei understood the definition of trauma.
And I had to push the dresser, like, behind the window. I'm like, Lord, please don't let the window break, God, please don't let it break.
Her North Fort Myers community flooded, almost unrecognizable after the Category 4 hurricane left its imprint.
Big old oak trees getting broken down that fell over.
Ian flipped this community upside down, leaving its residents in the dark and without water.
I think they just now getting the water back on, but they saying that we have to boil it, but we have no electricity to boil it.
There's a lot of need in these parts.
This is really the heart of the impact zone. There's a lot of folks here who have really high needs. It's a vulnerable population in a lot of areas.
And that need is being met by Good Samaritans.
We respond to earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, you name it.
The Cajun Navy runs this relief hub, helping hundreds. Since its founding in 2016, the organization has grown, using social media to further its cause. Its volunteers and donations provide those hit with natural disasters with resources necessary for survival.
It's going to take so much help from not just the Fort Myers community, but the surrounding, state, honestly, even the country.
Survivors can get food, water, and other supplies right here. Cajun Navy social media coordinator Mary Diacetis says support and care are vital during this trying time.
People just need love right now.
People like Tamara Cersei.
But to see somebody still care and somebody still love you, that means a lot, and it's not going unnoticed.
Who are taking it day by day with the help of the Cajun Navy.
I don't even know yet about even the place or what to do. So I'm just, I guess, playing everything by ear, waiting till the resources come.
To start building her life back.
We're gonna make it. We're survivors.
Piece by piece. In Fort Myers, Emily Palazzotto, WUFT News. Thousands of people in Southwest Florida had their lives changed in a matter of hours. The rebuilding process will be long, and it will be tough. With all the challenges, there is one common thread in every interview we conducted and every story we told: hope. Hope that one day the scenes we have showed you will be but a distant memory as Southwest Florida thrives again.
People are driving down from West Palm Beach, they're driving down from Miami, from Orlando, from Tampa.
We got everybody's back, so that's all we can do.
You got to keep moving forward. Gather things together and do the best you can.
We're tough, we're strong, we've been through this a lot.
People just need love right now.
We'll get through this one the same as we've gotten through the others.
Piece by piece, that's all.
I was like, I can't not do something.
A volver a levantarse, ¿verdad? Y ya.
I do love to see how we're coming together as a community to help each other.
They're so grateful. Like, everybody who I've spoken to is so incredibly grateful that the donations, the volunteers, all of that is here.
We have the strongest knit community around anywhere. So everybody's coming together and doing what we can to help everybody out.
So we really wanted to be able to give back to the community in any way that we can.
We will rebuild, we'll come back stronger, and we'll be okay.